Hello. Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Come on, Chiefs Kingdom. I said, how's everybody? Aren't we the loudest, proudest fan base in the NFL? I said, how's everybody doing tonight? You're going to make these guys drive all the way down here just to clap a little bit. Hey, we're doing good. All right. Okay. Anyway, I'm Mike, the intern from 104.7 The Cave. Before we... hold on. I didn't wear any, so I can't. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you to the Blue Room Comedy Club for hosting this. You guys have done a great job so far. Give them a hand. It's our first time here. We're really are really happy to be here tonight. Before we get into this, we got to take time out and thank our governor of the state of Missouri, Governor Parsons. He's in the building. Guys, give him a hand. Governor, please stand up. Thank you. Massive Chiefs fan. He wouldn't miss it for the world. And I'm glad he's here. Also, we also have also a little bit of royalty. He was an official in the NFL for a very long time. Larry, would you stand up, please? Larry Nemmers. Come on, stand up. He's Ned's +1 tonight. He's all his drinks are going on Ned's tab, okay? So just make sure that I guess since I just said his name, I'm going to bring up my partner in crime, Ned Reynolds. Please come on up here, sir. Before we get into this, though, I want to say thank you very much to our sponsors, Godfather's Pizza, RX Roofing, Coyotes, Adobe Cafe, MAA, Mocrete, Citizens Bank of Rogersville, and, of course, Governor for being here as well. Thank you guys so much. Without our sponsors, none of this would be possible. So give them a hand as well, please.
You know, we have ballyhooed this deal for the past month and a half. This is a great turnout, and thank you all very much. This is a new venue for us. Obviously, it is for you as well, and we really love the Blue Room Comedy Club in being such gracious hosts. Give them, if you will. I know Mike just called for it, but give them another big round of applause.
And please don't forget to tip your servers.
All right, if you will, Mr. Intern, do the honors for us here.
All right. Who wants to go first? Who wants to go first? All right, well then if that's the case, he is in the Kansas Broadcasters Hall of Fame. He's also in the Missouri Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Give him a hand. You know him as the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. Ladies and gentlemen, Mitch Holthus. And sometimes he goes by Joe Montana, but he played for the Kansas City Chiefs as well. He's also part of the incredible, and in my opinion, the greatest broadcasting team in all the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Danan Hughes. All right, go Hawks, go Hawks. I'm not gonna go Wildcats.
Yeah, let's put that out there too. Before we do this, so we got to get this right. First of all, Governor Parson is here, as you know, right? Maybe one of the biggest Chiefs fans I've been around, but he's really just the Wheatland Mule. And career high of 12 points for the Mules. But does anybody know, because we're going to the Super Bowl this year, in fact, we open our season, right? Anybody know where we open our season? And where will we end our season? Phoenix. What Super Bowl is it? Anybody know? Think about
56?
57. Governor Parson is the 57th governor in the state of Missouri. Boom.
It all comes together.
It's all here. It's all magical. And the other thing is, because he made a bad call, I know, I saw it. I called it back when Danan was playing, because he called him for holding. Larry Nemmers is here tonight, like 30 years of an NFL official.
Hey.
But we got to this is always the unofficial start of the season for me. This has turned into a tradition. The queens of the Queen City are here. Larry, stand up, and we're all going to boo him incessantly. Boo, boo,
Hey,
boo, boo.
Mitch, I will say, when they introduced Larry, and he stood up, I was just saying, dang, it wasn't me. It was just a flashback. It wasn't, that was the bad call.
Well, he was awesome. As an official, he blew a lot of calls.
We love the men in stripes.
But it's awesome
Sometimes.
to see all of you here. It's terrific. As Dana and I know all too well, Springfield is a bastion for the Chiefs Kingdom. It goes for real.
Yes.
So let's cheer and let's get ready to go start this season.
Okay, guys, sit down. Sit down.
I thought this was open mic night. I had some jokes ready.
Well,
did too.
go ahead.
Jeez, forget about it now.
Now, we're going to divide the questions. Art unable to be with us tonight, so we'll divide the questions between the intern and yours truly. And I'll start it off since I'm the, oh God almighty, the oldest one in the damn room. Boy, does that ever hurt. Let me tell you. All right. First of all, guys, a lot of negativity about the Kansas City Chiefs. See the NFL Network, and there's a couple of guys, which is utter nonsense.
Hold on, let me get my violin.
Picking the Chiefs for last place in the AFC West. Boo! All right, Mitchell, start us out, man.
Well, first of all, Ned was there for the first performance of the Bald Knobbers. I am here on the inaugural the Bald Knobbers from the top of the hill in Branson. And yes, he did cover Wilson's Creek in 1861. Nathaniel Lyon has met his maker. But love Ned. Love it, buddy. Love it. If you have a chance, go on when you get home, go on YouTube and just do a search for NFL Now and an interview that Andrew Siciliano did with me back when the trade happened. And he asked me the question, has the AFC West passed you by? Well, I was trying to be kind, but the fur went up on the back of my neck. And I said, this is going to work for the Lord. I'm going to answer a question with a question. Like, is the quarterback still here? Because every metric that you measure a quarterback, he is number one in NFL history after 4 years as a starter in every one of those categories. 2, he's 58-16. And I said, 2, is the head coach still here? And I was getting ready to get snarky, and my wife always says, calm down, don't get snarky. But I wanted to say the other 3 coaches in the AFC West, respect them all, but they have 20 total wins, including 2 years of Josh McDaniels with the Donkeys. 20 total wins. Coach has 19 playoff wins. So I go, let's just kind of calm down on the whole. I said, somebody pick us 4th, do it at your own peril. But if you really want to get a guy fired up, give old 383 something to say we're going to be last place in the division.
Yeah, I've lived through that as a player, and now in the broadcast booth that we were picked 5th in a 4-team AFC West back in '95, and then ultimately went 13-3. But it always seems every single offseason the Chargers are going to be the number 1 team in the AFC West, and yet they don't make the playoffs. They don't do anything. So, yeah, it's not surprising. I think it would be easy for everybody to say the best is going to stay the best, but I think it's a true testament to our leadership, to our organization, that every other team in the AFC West is drafting, is getting free agents specifically to try, and I use the word try, to beat the Chiefs. Not try to beat each other. Like, they don't even care about the Raiders beating the Chargers and all of that. They don't care about that. They want their focus to be totally on the Chiefs. And if you've ever seen that meme or that picture of 2 bike racers, or I remember there was a Carl Lewis picture of him running a race, and he was behind Ben Johnson, and he was looking at Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson was looking at the finish line. And it's like losers look to the side when they're trying to get forward, while the winners keep their head straight ahead. And that's where the Chiefs are. We're looking straight ahead. 4 straight AFC championships at Arrowhead, 6 straight AFC West championships. Like, we don't care about those dudes behind us. They can keep drafting and getting players all they want. They got to catch up to us. And as they try to catch up to us, we're going to keep pulling away.
And Ned, let me tag that too. Our guys, I'll tell you, this has been a really good spring and summer for our guys. Kelsey had the best summer and spring of any time in his career. I went up to him like, dude, you're like going double. Like you're trying to make the team. And he said, I've rediscovered my love for the game. And two, they're all kind of ticked off. Yeah. And so it's much like Danan, like the 95 team. This team's got a chip on its shoulder, and we've won the division 6 straight years. So our opponents are kind of doing us a favor. Our guys are going to go into camp, and that includes 15, man. He is locked in, and it's full throttle. They're going in with a chip on their shoulder. So
I like it.
Bingo. Yep. Beautiful.
So let's stay where we were. The trade, obviously. I love Tyreek. He was great. But something I felt that the team, at least personally, lacked was size in the receiver core. Danan, you're a receiver. Do you think that we finally...
You call me fat?
No.
Oh.
Never. I can't run fast enough. Do you think we finally, with the acquisitions we made in the offseason, have finally found that balance between speed and size with the new weapons that we have?
I believe so. And I will go back, and Ned and I did a show right at the end of the season. I do one with Spectrum Sports, and it seems like right after the last game, whatever that last game is, there's always a recap show. And I go through 3 things that I think the Chiefs at that time need to improve. And it's not that I have some kind of secret link to Brett Veach or anything in regards to the roster, but what I watch on the field, I see the game differently. I don't see it any better than anybody in this room. I just see it differently. I mean, there's probably some financial advisors or people that are really strong in the market that see the stock market differently than other people. The 3 things Ned can remember, I said we need to get longer at receiver, taller at defensive back, and have more of a consistent engine at pass rush. Lo and behold, that's what they got. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, the kids that they drafted, the corners and the safety, Justin Reed, Karlaftis, an engine guy, kind of reminds me of, Khalil Mack, just a guy that's going to continue to play through. Where Marty Schottenheimer was my coach, he said, play through the echo of the whistle. I know Larry, he doesn't like that, but we played through the echo of the whistle, and that's what we're going to have with this team. So to answer your question, when you move Tyreek, who is a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation talent, and I always said he wasn't the best wide receiver. He's one of the best playmakers I've ever seen. Anytime on the NFL level, people ask me about, I played in the Big Ten at Iowa, and they say, what's the difference between, go Hawks, what's the difference between college and pro? I said the speed. And the speed of the game is so fast. And on TV, because you can do slow motion and you got replay, et cetera, you don't really grasp how fast the game is. But it's extremely fast. So when you see a player like Tyreek actually pull away from fast guys, that tells you something about him. Not about those other guys. It tells you more about him. But what I think this year is going to be about with Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be a challenge for him because he doesn't have that outlet of a guy necessarily that's going to take a 5-yard pass and run 70 yards and juke 6 different people. You're going to have taller guys that you're going to have to trust to throw the ball down the field, that they're going to out-jump, out-physical other smaller DBs. And I think that's exciting for our team. So the trade, thinking back on it, we shouldn't have been surprised with only 1 year left on his contract, knowing that there's not a team that you can remember in the history of the game where you had a top 5 paid non-rookie contract quarterback and a top 5 paid receiver. So if you thought about that after the season, we kind of should have seen the writing on the wall, that it wasn't going to be some long-term thing unless somebody gave up some money, which is not necessarily the norm. So I'm excited. I want to see big receivers push around defensive backs because the defensive backs cheat. They're not supposed to touch us. They're not supposed to push us. They are cheaters. So they deserve to get pushed around. Oh, that's for my counselor. I'm sorry.
Spoken like a true wide receiver.
Okay.
That's their entity altogether. But Mitch,
See, this is the energy that Mitch gets in the booth with me. I start throwing forearms to him.
Oh, I got a torn labrum last year in the Buffalo game.
It gets physical up there.
But
PT.
Mitch, you've got to stop the opposition.
Yeah.
Did the Chiefs do the right thing in the draft?
Yeah, let me tag Danan and the trade too. It's not an apples to apples replacement with Tyreek Hill. He is an unusual human, an unusual athlete. It's not A equals A here. It's an algebraic equation of about 4 or 5 different variables. But one thing that I've seen this spring and summer, and watching what Danan just described so very well, is really good teams can attack you vertically and horizontally. Think of the red zone. The red zone, we've had really one red zone target, and that is Travis Kelce. Now with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I'm going to throw Jody Fortson in there because he's back. He's back. And MVS. Now all of a sudden you have 2 or 3 guys that the whole 53-yard width of the field you have to defend. And when that's the case, that opens up a lot of stuff, even for the running backs in the passing game. So you got to think outside the box here and realize it's not an A equals A replacement. The other thing I would say too, Ned, before I get into defense, is that, and Danan knows this all too well, we think it's the player and the team. We think player, team, player, team. There is the silent person that nobody ever holds accountable, and it's the agent. Drew Rosenhaus was bound and determined to make Tyreek Hill the highest paid wide receiver in the league. That was his mission, whether that was going to play for Neptune or the New Jersey Generals or, he got a taker with the Dolphins. For us, what we faced was if Tyreek was unhappy, he holds out, we have no cap room, and we wouldn't have had the draft picks we had. So now we have nothing. So to do that deal took some guts, but we had cap room, picks, and we move on. But the dudes we've got give us a chance, but thinking in different ways here. Okay. Defense, I'm hyper excited about this defense. We're going to be younger, we're going to be more athletic, and we're going to be more dynamic, I think, on defense. Let me just give you a couple of examples. Steve Spagnuolo, our defensive coordinator, loves to play some unconventional type defenses, meaning we'll play a lot of 4 down linemen, 1 linebacker, and 6 DBs. Those 6 DBs can be a combination of safeties and corners, but generally it's 3 safeties and 3 corners. Last year we struggled. Tyron did not have a good year. Love the dude. He was great 19. Thanks for winning the Super. He did not have a good year. Sorensen struggled as well. We all know that. And Neiman, go Hawks, made a great play on Super Bowl 54 and a kickoff coverage tackle, but he struggled in the 4-1-6. Now all of a sudden, instead of Neiman, you have Nick Bolton, M-I-Z. Nick is wearing the green dot. He gets the defensive calls, and he's a whirling dervish. Now those 3 safeties are included Justin Reed, Brian Cook, who is going to take you into next week. Go back and watch some video of him in Cincinnati. So when these teams check the runs against the 4-1-6, you might get a thigh contusion at 7 yards, okay? Different. We're going to be more physical and more electric there. And I like the corners. We got bigger at corner. Joshua Williams, a kid out of Fayetteville State. Jalen Watson, a kid out of Washington State. But we also have Trent McDuffie, not a tall corner, but he's athletic and puts his nose in the butter dish, meaning he'll get after it. So we're going to be, with Karlaftis, whose engine is great. What I saw in Karlaftis this spring and summer is they had a hard time throttling him down. Like, dude, you got to bring it down. Like, this is just practice. But he will chase. Here's what he will do. Watch this happen. It's now a gain of 6 or 8 yards by the enemy. Karlaftis will continue to chase, and he will knock the ball out at 9 yards, and we'll get a fumble recovery. That has not happened for us in a long time defensively. It's much like the defensive guys that Danan played with. That's what Karlaftis will bring. And then now in your nickel, when we go to 5 DBs and 2 linebackers, it's Willie Gay Jr. and Nick Bolton. Way more athletic. And I'll throw this one in there because there may be a few K-Staters out there, Ema, that if we're in base right now, Elijah Lee is one of the sneakiest pickups by us in the offseason. He played at Blue Springs. He was a star at K-State. He's played 7 years in the league. He almost decapitated McCole Hardman in Super Bowl 54 on punt coverage. And I'm like, God, I wish he was playing for us. He's playing for us.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody even talks about the cat. We're way more athletic and explosive on defense.
What he said.
One of the things I hear it in the off season is matchups. And I hate to switch gears to basketball, but in the last few years in the NBA, you always hear about ISO game. It almost feels that is as far as the offensive play the Chiefs are moving towards is almost as if it's an NBA ISO game. You set those matchups so that almost every single play, someone is outmatched. You've got those weapons. Are you guys seeing the same thing that I'm seeing, or do you feel that same way? Is that the way that they're going towards?
I've always felt that.
You're a radio DJ? That was really a good thought.
I've always felt that. I've called Andy Reid the mad scientist because I feel like he's kind of that brain trust that's in the back of the office drawing up different things to exploit other teams. And Mitch has mentioned, because he's up at training camp the entire time, how they might practice a play once or twice early in camp, and it's designed for week 10. And they don't even know it, but Andy does. And so to me, when you're talking about creating mismatches, exploiting different designs and tendencies, just to kind of give you all a picture of how the game is, the preparation of the game. I think a lot of people, because they may have played high school football, may have played some college football, et cetera, or watched football for a long time, they don't necessarily understand how intricate the design of game plans and plays and play callings and motions and shifts and all of that stuff is. When I was playing, we had a playbook. I actually still have it in the trunk of my car. It was a binder. Now they're electronic. We didn't have iPads back then, but I'm dating myself. So we had a binder, and every week on Monday we would come in. There was 2 bins, and we would take the binder, open the binder, take everything out, throw it in the bin. They would shred that bin. It would be like an assembly line. We would move on to the next station, and they'd give us another binder for that week's game. And that binder could have some plays of the previous week, but more than likely it didn't have a bunch of plays. So there's no such thing as a dumb athlete, because you can't absorb that much, then play on Sunday when somebody's trying to decapitate you at full speed and still know what you're doing. But the designing of the plays, we would have to know on 3rd down and 5, 3rd down and 4, 3rd down and 4 to 6, 3rd down and 8 to 10, 3rd down and 1 to 3 between the 40s. What was the percentage of man-to-man coverage? What's the percentage of zone? What would their look be? I would look at the defensive backs. I would say, is he right-handed or left-handed when I'm watching film? Does he stagger when he's playing man-to-man, or does he have 1 foot back? Is he at 8 yards and he's bailing out, or is he at 7 yards when he's coming in? Those are the things that you're taught. And my coach, one of the greats in his life that I learned it from was Bill Snyder. He was my offensive coordinator at Iowa when I first got there before he went to K-State. I learned so much about those intricacies. And that's what makes a team special. That's what makes the team their ability to exploit weaknesses. It's not so much about 6'3" versus 5'10". It's about, what are you going to have that 6'3" guy do, and in what circumstance is he going to do it? Because the play might work to perfection when the ball's on the 41-yard line, but on the 25-yard line, it might only be a 50-50 ball. So Andy Reid is one of the greats in history in the NFL of designing those type of plays in those type of situations to be successful at the right time, as opposed to just any time.
Okay, Danan, let's go back.
Well, and football's really changed, Ned. Football has changed a lot. And you could bring in every defensive coordinator from the high school. You can bring in Glendale, Kickapoo, Catholic, bring in Coach, there you go, I'm going to leave somebody out. But defensive football has become, you have to play in space. It's changed. I mean, you've seen all these spreads. Like Spags talks about all the time. The days of the 85 Bears are over. But you got to win those mismatches, or where they're trying to exploit a mismatch. And that's why I'm saying a Karlaftis, who makes a play after a 10-yard gain, becomes a huge winning play for a defense after the offense thinks this worked. So defensive football has changed a lot, especially in this league.
But they are rooks. You were rookie. You're the only one of us who played. How long is in a period of adjustment?
Well, one of the great things about being a rookie and being talented is that you don't know what you don't know. So all you have to do is go out and play, and then you think about Nick Bolton last year, how successful he was leading the team in tackles for loss. And there were times from the booth I can say, ooh, that wasn't the right positioning, or he should have been a little deeper, or he should have picked up that tight end a little bit earlier, or he should have saw that and not gotten so close to the line of scrimmage. But then you take some of the good with the bad, because he's going to learn from those situations. But yet the plays scoop and score against the Denver Broncos, where those are the situations where you don't want paralysis by analysis. You want young guys. You drafted them because they were great athletes and they were playmakers at the college level. Let them be playmakers and great athletes at the pro level, and then just fine tune. So that's kind of how I feel about young players. When I was a rookie, I never punt returned in my life. High school, Pop Warner in the backyard, never punt returned in my life. I was on practice squad for the first 10 games. Marty Schottenheimer comes up to me. We're playing Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. And he said, Danan, Fred Jones broke his nose because Fred Jones didn't really wear his chin strap, and he didn't have a mouthpiece. He always chewed tobacco, so it was bound to happen. And he said, he broke his nose, he's out. Can you punt return? Well, yes, yeah. Duh, I want to play. I'll figure it out. But I didn't know what I didn't know. So I went out there and I just was an athlete. So when you talk about young talent, I expect these guys to bring a lot of what we saw in college that made them successful in this first year. And then you have great coaching that's with Eric Bieniemy and Spags and Andy Reid and a host of other guys that are gonna just fine tune, that are gonna tighten the screws a little bit.
So I'm gonna say this still too about this class. This class, this is only my 29th year of being the voice of the Chiefs. This is one of the most unique classes. I wasn't around the '93 class. It was the next year I took over.
It was right after leather helmets.
Yeah. But this might be the smartest and toughest group of rookies that I've seen. And being smart means you don't have it all figured out. They are learning and soaking it in, but there's a toughness to these guys all the way down the line. To me, the great rookies that I've been around that succeed early are those that are those two things, smart and tough and humble. They're not coming in thinking, I got this all figured out. Honestly, I will say this. You would hire everyone, at least the top 5 picks. I know the other 5, but not as well as the front 5. You would hire all of them for your business right now. They're that unique.
In the almost 30 years that you've been there now, and Danan, you glom onto this as well, is the transition from big-time college football to the pros a narrower gap than it has been 29, 30 years ago?
I would say physically it's more narrow. I would say mentally and emotionally it's wider. Because what we have now are players coming out of college that I've seen a lot of it that are not emotionally and mentally prepared to play the game. It's not that I can't read my iPad, know where I'm supposed to go. It's not that I don't run a 4.25. But you have to be the greatest players who last a long time in this league are those that have an unusual emotional and mental strength. And I'm seeing some lack of that. They want to get paid. They're chasing it. They got it. But that's why I'm saying this group of rookies is unique because they are very strong mentally and emotionally. And that's where I see the gap right now.
So when I played, in regards to being a rookie and being baptized in the NFL, it was in training camp. And I remember, and actually I wasn't even a rookie, but not many people remember that the last stint in the NFL that Ronnie Lott, Hall of Famer, had was with the Chiefs in training camp. That's right. And I remember lining up as a wide receiver. He's playing safety, and we do some motions in the backfield, and we're running a backside slant, and I'm running the slant. And I run the slant, and thankfully, by the grace of God and the niceness of Ronnie Lott, he just flew right past me. He let me catch the ball, and then he flew right past me, and then I ran off, and the whistle blew, and I came back, and he's like, Rook, young man, let him know. that play was telling. And it was like, because to Mitch's point, there's an aspect of the game that until you play at this level, you don't know. I don't care if you went to the SEC, played in national championships, there is a mental aspect of the game with grown men playing with families, not a fifth-year senior, that you don't know. So the tells of what you're doing when you line up on the outside of the numbers versus the inside of the numbers, if you have your left foot forward versus your right foot forward, if you break the huddle and you look like it's a run play because you're running out to your wide receiver position pissed off because you know it's not a pass play. Your body language, all of that is stuff that grown men that are doing this for a living study. And when I was in college and I'm playing against Ohio State and Michigan and Miami back when they were the U, those guys were just going off of pure athleticism. But then you get to the NFL and you add that pure athleticism with brains, it's scary. And that was kind of like my baptism into the mental side of the game when Ronnie Lott basically spared my life and didn't decapitate me. It was like, okay, now I'm starting to think, why would the safety roll up so quickly because I'm over here by myself? Because that's the only route that I could run. And he saw everybody else motioning to this side. So it's a different dynamic, and I don't care. People always talk about, oh, Alabama could beat, the Jacksonville. Absolutely not. Get it out your head. An 0-16 team would boat race the number one team in college football every year and twice on Sunday.
So, new offensive weapons. A lot's been made about Patrick being down in Texas, bringing MVS, Juju, all the new guys. Because up until this point, I felt, at least from my perspective, that this team had a really good camaraderie. They worked well together. It was a brotherhood. You could feel it. You could see it. And as fans, we all could see it. I felt it. I'm sure you guys felt it. So do you feel like all that time in Texas, even though we've only had a couple OTAs and stuff, what you've seen, do you think that stuff worked?
The Chiefs are 16-3 in September the past 6 years. By far the best in the NFL. Why? They approach training camp and treat training camp like it's like a game. Like if you come to St. Joe, it's not running around in piñatas and balloons and pinwheels. Because they approach their off-season program and their mini camps like it's training camp. They hit training camp like it's the regular season. Patrick started OTAs on his own in Texas. The reason our camaraderie is strong is Andy Reid, but when your greatest players, who are both going to be Pro Football Hall of Famers, are the hardest workers and have the best attitudes, and when Patrick calls, hey, why don't you come to Dallas? Are you going, nah, I don't think so. I think I'll just hang out at the lake. Are you going to Dallas? Yeah. And Kelsey, I mentioned this, no one's worked harder than Kelsey other than Patrick. So when Patrick did that camp, because he knew he had to get MVS and he had to get Juju up to speed, McColl was there. I expect good things out of McColl. I think the Chiefs Kingdom has not been kind to McColl. Like you want him to fantasy football. You want 80 catches and 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. McColl's going to win games for you. And if we said, hey, we don't want McColl anymore, 31 teams would break the doors down of this place to get him. Okay, McColl's there. Sky Moore is trying to soak it in. But the fact that Patrick did that, he wanted to make sure this team was hitting OTAs on an uptick. Because OTAs mean you're going to hit training camp on an uptick and you're going to hit the season on an uptick. So that's because of your best players have that kind of attitude.
Okay, Mitch, that's a very good point that you bring up, the teamwork and the camaraderie and so forth and so on. Here's Mr. Negativism right here.
Ned being negative. So
Clark and Jones stay away. Didn't go to the OTAs.
Yep.
Training at home and so forth and so on. Does that tell you anything at all?
Chris showed, yeah, I mean, there's some things that cause me to lose sleep. And truthfully, I'll just bring it up since you haven't asked it, but the Orlando Brown Jr. situation I'm going to throw that same thing into this discussion. I was worried about Chris, like how's he going to show up? He did come to mandatory minicamp. And I'm like, what's Chris doing? Because he has not been here for OTAs. So it's one of those where you get in the blind date and you're going, what's it look like, And Chris showed up in shape. He had a great week. of mandatory minicamp. Not a good week, a great week. And I'm like, okay. Now, Frank wasn't there. He was excused, had a baby. So I'm concerned about Frank. I'll be honest with you. Just what do we have? I don't know. It's like, he's going to show up in St. Joe. What do we have? And then the Orlando Brown Jr. situation. Like, we're sitting here at the 0 hour tomorrow at 3 p.m. Like, is he probably not going to do a deal? Is that just so he doesn't sign his tender? I mean, what happens there? And to me, Orlando Brown Jr. needs the work.
Yeah.
Okay? So, no on Chris Jones. I'm not concerned after what I saw. Yes on Frank, and yes on Orlando Brown Jr.
Yeah, I'd say Chris Jones. I look at from a different perspective in regards to production on the field. When you look at Frank Clark, we hadn't really seen great Frank Clark in regular season, but we've seen phenomenal Frank Clark in postseason. I think you said the stat that he is top 5. Most people wouldn't even realize that he's top 5 in the history of the NFL in postseason sacks. Top 5. But yet we don't see that over the course of the regular season as consistently as we would like. Now, on the flip side, you have Chris Jones, who's phenomenal during the regular season, but during the postseason hasn't really showed up as that dominant force. So anytime they're away, there's a concern for me, and I want to see that production consistently across the board on the field. Orlando Brown Jr., I agree with Mitch. I think he needs to be here. To be that anchor and that left tackle is such an important position that I hope that the business side doesn't affect his production on the field, his health, his stamina, and his ability to be that anchor on that side of the offensive line.
Is that right? 3 o'clock tomorrow is when he has to sign?
I'm sorry?
The signing of the contract has to be when?
Well, tomorrow at 3 o'clock is when there's the deadline of having a long-term deal. And then he basically becomes, he'll still has franchise tag on him. So basically he could set out the whole year. He could have up until the 10th week of the season to sign it, to not set out the whole year. But the thing that concerns me about Orlando Brown Jr. is, as an agent, go back here now, we think it's the team and the player, the team and the player, the team and the player. Stop it. Who's the dude in the middle, or the gal? It's the agent. He has an agent who doesn't have any other NFL players, who's never had any NFL players, and Orlando Brown wants to be one of the top 5 left tackles in the league in pay. Now, I like Orlando Brown Jr. There's a moment. He had 1,128 snaps, if I'm not mistaken. He gave up 37 pressures, 12 quarterback hits, allowed 4 sacks. Pro Football Focus, which are like political polls for Governor Parson, if it looks good, use it. If it doesn't, it's no good. So that's Pro Football Focus. But his grade last year was 75, which is like middle of the pack. And he's got to Danan's point, he's got a ways to go. And I think if we took a consensus of everybody in the league, he's not one of the top 5 left tackles in the league. Yet, he could be. So get in the camp, do the work. Even if you sign the tender and you're going to get a guaranteed $16.7 million, guaranteed for the most part, to play this year, then prove yourself that you're a left tackle worthy to be one of the top 5 or 7 left tackles in the league. But he's not there yet, and I don't mean that to cast aspersions on him. It's just what's real.
16-7 is pretty good.
Yeah,
I'll take
but
it.
Also one of the things that I think people have to realize, and in Mitch's point, is that one of the crazy twists, and it's justified if you understand the dynamic of when I first signed with my agent. I actually got drafted to play pro baseball before I came to the Chiefs. I was a 3rd-round pick in 1992. I played college baseball and football at Iowa, and I signed with an agent. Go Hawks! And I signed with an agent, and then I played 2 years of pro baseball before the Chiefs drafted me, and then I wind up giving up baseball and playing football. And then as I transitioned out of the game, became a banker, did mortgages for a lot of players around the NFL, around athletes and entertainers around the country. I started speaking to agents more and advisors and players, other players, and they trusted their agent to do everything. And some people criticize that, but if you're a I literally went from $10 per week per diem, sharing my $10 with 3 other guys on the team to buy pizza. and then having 6 figures in my bank account within a week, and an agent facilitating that. So 2 + 2 is 4. I'm gonna thank him and trust him for everything, because I no longer have to eat ramen noodles. But the thing that players have to realize, and I've tried to talk to these guys throughout my years, remember that the agent works for you, and you don't work for the agent. So when you're in a situation like Orlando Brown Jr., like Tyreek Hill, the dynamic Tyreek says on his podcast, which is a whole bunch of other craziness, but he talks about he wanted to be a chief. Now, to me, if you wanted to be a chief, why aren't you a chief? Because your agent works for you, and it takes one phone call to say, I don't care what you say, you work for me, get the deal done with the Chiefs, period. And I'm hoping that Orlando Brown Jr. kind of comes to that mindset as well, where we know that the agent, part of the agent, they want the most money so they can save for other future recruits to their agency. I got the most money for Orlando Brown Jr., and I got these best contracts and this and that. They want that, and they want a higher amount of money based on the 3 or 4% that they get of that contract. But I'd like to see a transformation of the minds of players where they start treating those advisors as advisors, and then ultimately tell them, you work for me, this is what I want you to get done. If you don't get it done, I'll get somebody else to get it done. So,
Danan, tell the folks who the major league team was that you went with.
Milwaukee Brewers. I was drafted with Derek Jeter, Jason Giambi. They could hit curveballs, I could foul them off.
Danan, you said something in the beginning. You said that all the other teams in the AFC West are doing everything they can to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know I said this to Ned earlier in the, I don't know, it was the offseason. I said, it almost feels like there's an arms race in the AFC West. It's like the 80s, and we're the U.S., and everyone else is Russia. And it's throw as much money at those nukes as you possibly can do, because it's the only way you're going to win this war, right? What's the one thing in the AFC West that scares you right now?
First of all, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. How'd it work out for Gorbachev in that?
That's why I put us as the U.S.
Thank you. That's it, exactly. Yeah. Thanks for not putting us as Russia.
We're the U.S.
What scares me about that? No, I'm going to respect them all. I think Herbert's an elite quarterback, but he's got to prove he can do it, Mike. There's only one of 4 quarterbacks that has accomplished what he has from a completion percentage, yards, touchdowns over interception ratio, those metrics, who's never played in the playoffs. And he's played 2 years now. Now you can put all that on the defense, or we got a little Phillip Rivers going on. Is there? So, oh by golly, here we go. But
they're picked to be first. Again.
But he's a talented kid. So, and they got some stuff around him, but I think that would concern me. The Raiders and Broncos, yeah, but they got to do it, Mike. I mean, we've done it 6 straight years, and I'm not trying to be braggadocious here, but that's why our guys are pissed. Like Kelsey looked at me with those eyes of Zeus. I go, dude, you're working like you're a undrafted free agent. He goes, I'm pissed. He looked at me like I'm like, okay, good. But we got talent in our division. I guess that would be the respect and concern, but they've got to deal with a tough schedule too. Look at everybody's schedule. The Chargers have the best schedule, but look at the Bills' schedule. Look at the Bengals' schedule. Just take a look at it outside of our myopic world, and you're going to go, wow, they got to deal with some stuff too. So just game on.
Yeah, I think the only part that concerns me is the fact that when the schedule comes out as a player, when the schedule came out in late April, when I was playing, the first thing we looked at was when our bye week was, because we wanted to know when we had off. The next thing we looked at was the Monday night, Sunday night games, and then where specific teams were and where those targets were. And I feel like based on the the success of the Chiefs, I feel like the other 3 teams in the AFC West, the first thing they look at is not the bye, but when do they play the Chiefs. So the Chiefs matchup is like their Super Bowl. And that could be concerning. But at the same time, we recognize that you're shooting for us. We can play more relaxed. We can have more confidence. And we can put our best foot forward because we're going to take all the bullets, all the haymakers that you try to throw. And then when it's all said and done and it's halftime and we're still up by 3 with the ball coming out for the third quarter, that's when teams get shot. And we've seen that time and time again. So if there's a concern, it's the fact that the target is on our back for the rest of the AFC West, but that's also something that's a benefit for us as well.
The team in red is the one that they are chasing, and don't let them forget that. That's one right. Little bit. Hey, Mike, I think there's some folks probably who want to ask some questions here. Why don't you take that traveling mic out there?
All right, you ask one while I go get the wireless guys.
This is an altogether interesting situation. Now you have 3 preseason games coming up, 1 on the road and 2 at home. Do you feel like the Chiefs are in a situation where they will make the most out of those preseason games in terms of deciding on the roster, or is that already set?
No, Andy Reid puts a lot of emphasis on every work. Remember, every day at camp, there's no wasted days with Andy Reid. The 2 greatest coaches I've been around were 7 years with Bill Snyder, and this will be my 10th year with Andy Reid. There's a lot of similarities.
Not Todd Haley?
Nothing on Twitter tonight. That's one of the rules of our deal. Otherwise, I'll sick
Just say I said it. I wasn't part of the broadcast then.
the queen of I'll sick the queens of the Queen City on you. We approach the preseason games. There's no USFL plays in the spring, but we don't have a developmental league. We have got to use those preseason games, particularly with 42 new guys, to figure out. We've seen the preseason. Derek Gore comes into play. Derek Gore last year was a star of our preseason, and then all of a sudden against the Raiders, he pops a 40-yard run because we needed him because we were beating up at running back. Like those preseason games, don't sleep on those. I know you can't play them for fantasy, but don't sleep on them. Watch them, study them, and like who's this guy and who's this number? And we got a lot of decisions to make, tough decisions to make on our roster, and those preseason games are paramount. Yeah. So we'll treat them with a ton of importance. All 3 of them.
Nothing is set in stone yet. Mike?
I'm out here.
Fire
All right,
away,
this is the best part of the evening where you guys get to ask these questions. You want to go? Doing good. I'm right here, so stand up. Say, what's your question, sir?
Frank Clark. We don't hear much about him on Arrowhead Pride. Is he going to go to jail or be suspended by the NFL for gun charges? Doesn't he have some...
You want to handle that, Todd?
Do we have a lawyer in the house?
By the way,
is there a lawyer in the house?
When
lawyer. No lawyers.
When Mike introduced Danan as Joe Montana, I go, man, age changes us a lot. But, I haven't heard anything about that, quite honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gone like super quiet.
Am I correct that he does have gun charges for illegal gun possession?
Yeah, it was a year ago. I haven't heard anything about that.
Hasn't been any chatter about it.
No.
That's strange.
So I'm not sure what he faces there, and
thank you, gentlemen. I'm glad to have number 83 in the house.
Any other questions? All right, we'll go over here. Sir, your question?
Yeah, first off, I want to say I think going into this season it's going to be better than the last 2 just because we've lost. We lost the Bucs in the Super Bowl, then we lose to the Bengals last year. I'd rather be going out of this year with nobody. I mean, if you watch sports, a lot of them are picking other teams, and I like that. I like to surprise people. But my question is, in the running back room, Beach said before the draft there's a 1,000-yard rusher in the 6th, 7th rounder. They drafted Pacheco. I mean, is that a dart throw at that point in the draft, or is he a guy they had targeted at all? Do you know? Or, I mean, what do you think?
I think everybody can be, and I go along with what Mitch talked about with Derek Gore last year. Let's also not forget about Jerick McKinnon. He started and played a bulk of that first preseason game against the Niners, and to me, that was kind of the game that catapulted him to a viable part of the offense, and then ultimately when we needed him down the stretch, he came through like gangbusters. And I think that's what, like, people talk about in Brett we trust, in Andy we trust, and that seems to be prevalent up until draft day. Then everybody goes crazy. Oh my gosh, what did they do? They should have did this, or so on. And I think they have garnered enough trust from us in structuring a roster and being successful with how they do it, that we should give them the benefit of the doubt. But as far as the running back room, I think that's between the running backs and the receivers are probably the two most competitive rooms that we'll see unfold during the preseason. There's some talented free agent pickups at the receiver position, and you talk about Ronald Jones and Jerick McKinnon and Derek Gore and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, and Pacheco, who you're talking about. If they make the team, or whoever makes the team, the thing that we can rest on and we can have confidence in is that Andy has a package for them.
Yeah.
That they're not just going to be extra bodies. They have a package. There's a plan for when they are being used. It's almost like a middle reliever, a situational pitcher. It's like, you know when you're going to put him in the game, lefty versus lefty, righty versus righty, 2 outs situation when you need a rollover or a pop-up, whatever it is. That's what we know with how we structure our team. So I think all of those guys, sometimes it's going to be about who's healthy. I mean, Darrell Williams basically got his starts or his opportunities based on other people's lack of ability to stay healthy, and look what he was able to do. Damian Williams, during that Super Bowl run, what he was able to do based on other guys' inability to be on the field. So I'm confident. I think it's going to be fun to watch, but there's some talent there.
There's eight guys in that room as we go to St. Joe. You need to watch them really closely every day. Follow them. Follow up the stuff. We'll give you stuff every day to follow it on. Pacheco's interesting to me. Right now, if we're playing tonight, Pacheco's the kick returner. What we've needed and missed since Damian Williams' run to immortality in Super Bowl 54 is some combination of speed and girth. McKinnon's not a girth guy. Clyde's not. And Pacheco and Ronald Jones Jr. are both that guy. And Pacheco now popped a 4.37 at Rutgers. Okay? So when you study Damian Williams and his run to immortality, he's about 215, 220, and ran a 4.37. Go back and look at the podcast called Base 10, and we went through all 10 draft picks. I said, Pacheco, even though he's a 7th-round draft pick, to answer your question, is more than a dart throw, because he is 215 to 218 to 220 and has run a 4.37. I'm going to throw out another name that is Jerrion Ely, who was an undrafted rookie free agent out of Ole Miss. Catches the football, got some spunk to him. He's going to be involved in this as well. Derek Gore, we know about Clyde. But there's 2 guys with girth in that room that I'm excited about, because we've missed that in both 20 and 21, in my opinion.
Ready to go? First off, I want to say thank you very much for coming down, Danan and Mitch. I think I can speak for all of us for saying that. But Danan started to touch on it a little bit. I think the last time that I checked, we have 14 wide receivers in the house right now. And this is a speculative question, so who do you see making the 53 in the wide receiver room? Is Josh Gordon going to be there? Is Cornell Powell going to be there?
The easy answer is I don't know. But I will say that Cornell Powell, Josh Gordon, has been afforded as much opportunity as you can give. And there's no more of a learning curve anymore. And so the onus is on them. It's kind of one of those deals where it's on their shoulders to make the team. What is it? Justin Ross?
Ross, yeah.
Ross has lit things up in rookie camp and has opened up some eyes, and was a top receiver at Clemson but had the injuries. He could be a factor as well. But I don't know. I mean, I've been in that. I was drafted in the 6th round. I think 6th or 7th. 7th, dang it. Man, I've been telling my grandkids it was the 2nd. 7th round, and every...
I love it. Fact check.
Sheesh. What's my social security? No.
Tough crowd. We're going to put barbed wire up here and sing Rawhide. You guys can throw beer bottles at us. Jeepers.
So 7th round, and every
Governor, where's
year
those security
consecutively after that, they drafted a receiver in the 3rd round or earlier. And Marty Schottenheimer used to come up to me. He's like, Danan, I try to cut you every year. And I said, Marty, I'm going to make it the toughest decision you ever have to make. Like, I'm not just going to give it away. I have the opportunity to shine and make plays and then put the onus on the quarterback. So I kind of feel like Josh and those guys are in that same boat. There's some hoopla and some energy about those guys coming to this team, but now it's time to show and prove.
Yeah, I'm going to use my compadre here to answer that. And so Jerrion Ely, they've listed as a wide receiver. Put him in the running back room to make 8 running backs, and there's 13 wide receivers. On whatever this is, July the 14th or whatever, I'm going to say 6 will make it. But here's where you've got to think about number 5 and number 6. You have to find this guy who is not only effective on scrimmage downs, but he becomes a 4-core special teams player. So let me give you a name nobody's thinking about here, and his name is Justin Watson. He played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was injured last year, but go back to 2020 when they beat us in the Super Bowl and look at Justin Watson. He was from Penn. He played in the Ivy League. Like, what? Well, Justin Watson to me is the closest thing right now that we have on our roster to Danan Hughes. That's who makes your roster.
Hit somebody in the mouth.
That's it.
That's Danan Hughes.
That's it, yeah. $25 copay with the psychiatrist. How we doing, everybody? Yeah. Whew. Settle down there, big belly. I'm just getting over my leg.
Okay, yeah.
But I think Josh Gordon now, remember he struggled last year, but Josh Gordon this spring and summer looked a little bit more like the Cleveland Browns' Josh Gordon. He's slimmer. He looks more the part. And if I had to guess, so 4 are pretty solid here, right? Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, Sky Moore, and McCole Hardman. There's 4. I think we would keep 6 if you're going to pin me to the mat. I think Justin Watson right now would be one of them. And then I would think probably Josh would be the other one. But Josh has got to also be a willing and participant on special teams. Somewhere along the line he's going to have to do that because that's what and one of those guys will be inactive probably on game day. It's tough to have 6 active wide receivers on you. You have to have inactives declared. But that leaves 7 good guys. Justin Ross had the one-handed catch. I mean, we saw what he did in the college football playoff, but I could see him being practice squad, being developmental. Cornell Powell he could go back to practice squad. Corey Coleman is on this team. People forget about him. He's played in the league. He played for the Carolina Panthers. He's on this squad. Omar Bayless is on this team. He's not bad. We're okay at wide receiver, but think about number 5 and number 6 and know that they've got to be this guy. And your number 6 guy for sure has got to be a special teams 4-core guy.
And I will add to that, when you are a player, people don't realize, we talked about the speed being the transition from college into the pros, but there's a dynamic of being a starter and being on the field all the time and transitioning into a guy that is playing 20, 25 plays. You never know when you're going to go into the game. And I think there's an aspect of what we saw from Josh Gordon that he just wasn't comfortable being the guy that was platooning in and out of the game. And that's a special talent. Not everybody can do that. There are guys that I played with that could be in the Ring of Honor or Hall of Fame that could not get into their being and be engaged in the game and be as potent as a playmaker because they had to keep coming in and out of the game because they weren't the number 1 guy. So when I watched Josh last year, he seemed, past tense, like a guy that needed to be on the field for 55 plays, get comfortable, get into the rhythm, and then you would see some of the magic we saw with the Cleveland Browns. That transition is going to be important because he's not going to be that guy. So adding to Mitch's point about being engaged when you get on the field, looking to make that play as opposed to looking to the sideline every single play to see if somebody's coming in to get you. It's different. As a player, it's different, and only there are certain guys that can absorb that and still flourish, and there's certain guys that allow that to kind of be their demise.
Forgive me. I'm only asking this because I need closure and I can't afford a therapist. I was there, you guys were there. What on earth happened in the second half of the AFC title game?
Way to bring that up.
Boo this man.
Now you're talking about my therapy. I'm just getting over the ink blot. Looks like I don't know, a bubble screen on last play of the half. Short answer, the worst thing that happened to us in that sequence at the end of the half was a defensive pass interference penalty on the Bengals. The ball's at the 1, 36 inches away. Now we're leading 21-10, and we get the ball to start the third quarter. The caveat, and Dana and I talked about this and mentioned it on the air, was the fact that we had no timeouts and less than 10 seconds remain in the half. Meaning, if you could have the perfect play, but any penalty, if the clock is moving, is a 10-second runoff, you could have a touchdown, everybody's cheering, doesn't matter, you're running in. Nemers will tell you this, if you're out of timeouts, it's less than 10 seconds, and the clock's moving and you have a penalty, it doesn't matter if you get a touchdown. But we're 36 inches away, and think about how competitive our quarterback is. And I think that came into play. In hindsight, I think Patrick would probably, because I think Coach was saying, let's just kick the field goal. We're going to go up 24-10, and we get the ball to start the third quarter. So let's just say we go on a 6-minute drive and kick another 3. Now we're up by 3 scores, and we've just eaten 6 minutes off of the 15 minutes of the third quarter. Now the Bengals have to score 3 times, and they're down to 15 and 9, 24 minutes to do so. And it's not like we're not going to get the ball back. Catch my drift? So when you're in the stands and you're going, go for it, God, go for it. Look at the clock, think about Larry Nemers and go, do we have any timeouts, and is it less than 10 seconds? To me, that's the caveat there. Kick the 3, go up by 24-10, get the ball to start the third quarter, and then take care of those dudes. Because that whole sequence threw the game completely out of whack in the second half, in my opinion.
So this is the reason why we complement each other very well. Because I'm like, hit him in the mouth, choke him with another touchdown. No. But he's the sane part of me. He's like the great Gazoo from the Flintstones. I'm dating myself. You know that guy, the conscience on your shoulder. And everything he's saying is right. My thought was, if you go through that sequence, the play prior to that took 4 seconds.
Yep.
Right?
He threw it in the dirt. 5 seconds.
Threw it in the dirt.
Because Andy told Patrick, okay,
not there.
make it fast.
Yep.
And then it happened, and I'm going, do not call intentional grounding, because that means a 10-second runoff, and we get no points, and we're running in, and Nemers is going, see, told you so.
Should have just kicked the ball. But I guess I was on the mindset of, this is the dagger. This is the opportunity of a dagger at Arrowhead with the fans, how they are, the demoralized nature of how the Bengals would be. Like, I was on the 90s Chiefs. Like, we lost most of our playoff games when we were the better teams. So that was kind of in my mind. So in that situation, I thought, okay, the prior play, took the snap, 4 seconds off the clock. We still got time left on. If you run the exact play or something similar and everybody does the same thing, there's 2 seconds left to kick the field goal. That was my 2 or 3 seconds left to kick the field goal. That was my mindset. Now, once Patrick got off kilter, it looked like, because he made the pump fake, and then out the side of his eye, he saw Tyreek. And I think Tyreek was kind of surprised that he got the ball as well, because, again, the design of that is to go to step 1 and then let it go and kick the field goal. I don't have a problem. I obviously have a problem with the execution because it didn't work. and it opened the door for some energy for the Bengals to go in the locker room and feel positive, still being down by 14 points, and we know how it all ended. But I think it kind of jolted them, and instead of in the locker room at halftime, you don't have a lot of time, but you have a lot of alone time to sit in your locker, and you can use that time to feel bad or to be focused on what went wrong in the first half, or to be more looking forward to what you're going to do in the second half. And it's human nature that if you just missed that opportunity the way you did, that probably soaked up a lot of their energy and the brain activity at halftime, and it was unfortunate.
Mike, I think
Here's what I'd say, too. A half like that and a game like that can take a team off the tracks for 2 or 3 years. And I think we saw it when we lost to the Broncos in '97. That like this threw us off.
Yeah.
Because we should have won that game, and they go on and win that. They win the whole thing. It's like, God, we should have beat them. We were better, and they even admitted it. This team, because of Patrick and who he is and how he's wired, and Kelsey, has not thrown them off the track at all. If anything, it's just part of the chip on their shoulder to motivate him. And that's the only thing I'd say about that. Other than if it's less than 10 seconds and you have no timeouts, just understand that it's a whole different sequence. That's okay, my turn.
All right, I've got a question for all three of you. Ned, we both got a sweet tooth. Who are you putting your chocolate chips on this year?
You're putting me on the hot seat here, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
My chocolate chips, and you have to understand that is a euphemism that we use.
Yes, it is.
Because I sure as hell don't have any money to put on it. I would have to, in the AFC West, go with the Chiefs.
Very
They're
good,
the champs.
very good.
They've been there. Anytime you have a champion that is looking to repeat and you have challengers like they do have, it's not going to be an easy road. It can't be. That's not the way it's designed.
Nope.
Tough schedule and all that sort of thing. But I do think in the end, Kansas City emerges. I'm going to guess.
What record?
I am going to guess 12-5. But
I like it. I like it. Danan.
I'm going with the Chiefs, and here's part of the reason why. When I look at the landscape of the rosters and depth charts around the league, specifically in the AFC West, I never, if you ever listen to the broadcast, I'm on with Ned every other Thursday. In between, he has some other guy named Sean Barber, a defensive linebacker. That was just charity work that they do to have him on the air. Because nobody wants to hear from a defensive guy. They cheat. But I never focus on September and October and part of November.
Yeah.
So I look at the roster healthy. Who would be the scariest team in January? Healthy.
All right.
And you can't convince me that it's not the Chiefs.
Okay.
So whether it's 12-5, whether it's 10-7, and we're a wild card team, second week of January, I don't care what slot we're in. We are the scariest team in the NFL.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. All right, I got one more question for you. You had
So I'm guessing I can't say Logan Rogers.
Mitch, I'm not going to put you on the spot.
Wildcats. What?
Dana, you had 425 career yards.
But I hit people in the mouth.
That's right. 9.2 yards per reception. 4 touchdown passes. Who'd you catch them touchdown passes from?
Marcus Allen.
Okay.
Monday Night Football
Trick
against
question.
the Steelers.
Okay.
Bono was my first touchdown against the Giants.
All right.
Rich Gannon, back corner of the west end zone. Is that west? Yeah, that's west.
Yeah.
West end zone, back corner, scramble drill on a slant route. And,
I know you're 51, so, maybe it's memory's lost.
God, what is this fact check on Danan night? Jeepers. You're going to find his New Jersey driving record.
baby,
This is going to
you
be scary.
You got to know your Chiefs.
It was Bono on a slant route against the Broncos inside the 5-yard line. I had to high point it, got hit, held on to it. Touchdown.
All right. Very good. Go Chiefs.
hey, don't be knocking us Jersey guys either. Come on, we can come on.
Forget about it. Who died and left you boss? That's how we talk in Jersey.
I'm
If you
39.
want
I
to-
couldn't remember what I did this morning.
Danan's birth certificate is back at the if you want to see it. It's on display.
We got any more questions, anybody?
One more,
Going over
gang.
here?
One more.
One more? Real before we do this, I didn't ask you guys this. The idea of moving Arrowhead. It's been talked about a lot. I know. Hey, facts are facts. The two possibilities that I've heard, one, we move Arrowhead out to the Speedway area, out to Legends in Kansas. Two, they blow up the whole thing, keep it at one Arrowhead Drive, they move the Royals downtown, and they keep the Chiefs, and they make it a big, almost like a ballpark village in St. Louis type of situation where it is right now. What do you think's more likely?
God, go get some pizza, Mike. Seriously.
Hey, this is my first time doing this. I thought I'm swinging for the fences.
I'm
looking for the fences right here.
I'm looking back at the Wheatland mule back there going, he might be better to talk about this. Let me tell you a real issue, though, and I think Governor Parson would probably, in a casual conversation or public, tell you this. Somewhere we've got to increase our tax base. It cannot be Jackson County, Missouri. Okay? Now, what does that mean? Because in the environs of Kansas City, there is not a big giant wall that sits there between state line. Okay? It just doesn't. So we got to figure this out where, because I think the Royals are going to build a downtown stadium. We also take a field trip sometime to SoFi or to Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and you'll see what we're up against. We love Arrowhead Stadium. Oh my God, SoFi, they're activating all 5 senses in your body every second of this game. Like they're giving you whoopee cushion and you're getting electric shock and you're like, I don't even know 5 Charger fans in LA and it sounds like it's super loud. And I'm like, they're all pumping in this sound.
Yep.
But to have a very real discussion about it, I could see something where you have a SoFi built at right where we're at Arrowhead Stadium or configuring, move that whole parking lot. But is there a smaller stadium at some point that you put on the Kansas side that has a 5-star hotel that becomes a 365-day place where you do some special events, where you now become a partner instead of putting up the Iron Curtain on state line? But you've got to increase your tax base. We can sit here and play dreamy, let's do something all the time, but and Governor Parson will tell you the state of Missouri's been awesome in looking at this, but I think that they're willing, particularly if this guy is there, to do something in a partnership where instead of like fighting each other, we build something that's out of the box of thinking, where you keep Arrowhead in Missouri and build it better and bigger than ever and have a ballpark village. But in Kansas, you have something else that is special that becomes a 365-day destination. Think of Lambeau Field and what they've done.
Yeah.
Right? So that's just me. Nobody's saying that. It's not Donovan. It's not Clark. And now I'm in trouble. But I'm also telling you, we've got to broaden the tax base to pull this off, or we won't be able to do any of it. Unless you want to have a Super Bowl. You want to have a Super Bowl?
Yeah, have a dome.
Figure out a way to do a dome. Just a retractable one. Like everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first way to raise the tax base is legalize sports betting. I think would help a lot. Well, my question is kind of off topic. It's mainly for about NFL Plus. I heard it was coming this year. They said that each team was gonna do exclusive content for NFL Plus, and that they would also have games. I really would love to just pay. I would pay money to listen to you guys while I'm watching a game, so I don't have to listen to other guys. I won't name their names. But like ever since TV went to digital, it's hard to sync up the radio to the TV, and like the feed that you guys have in the stadium. Whenever you're watching it, like say you got to run and grab some food, I can watch the game and listen to you guys commentate. Do you see that as an option in the future, so where we can listen to you guys and watch the game, and pay a lot of money to the NFL to make it happen?
I would love that. I would love. I've heard people talk about how they mute their TVs and listen to us, and I think that's, a huge blessing for us. It's awesome for me to hear. It's obviously a dream come true to be in the booth with Mitch and be able to call games for a team that I played for, the only team I played for. The problem, like you said, is that it's not always synced up, and that's unfortunate. But I don't know much about NFL Plus, but I think if they can accommodate that, and there's some way, whether it's through Odyssey, our radio station, and be able to, and the affiliates all around that can get it all together, I think it's great. I've heard more times than not people listen to us mute the TV, and the energy that comes from Mitch in the booth is real. It is not manufactured. It is incredible to watch and participate in. There was, get me off target, but there were the Bills, I think it was the Bills game in the playoffs, or it was one final drive or big play, and they have a camera in there over us to record our, us doing our thing. And like my kids text me like, Dad, why are you not excited? I'm like, could you imagine the ruckus that could go in this booth if both of us were excited like he is excited? Like we'd break stuff, computer screens and everything. So when you guys hear touchdown Kansas City, yeah, break it. That'll go viral. But when you hear everything that you hear from him, it's off the cuff. It's from right off the dome. It's not about notes that he has, and it's not manufactured energy. It is real. Like, I assume that he sleeps extremely well after every game because of the output that he gives, and I wish that people that could hear that more by pressing mute on their TV.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys.
And there's the item of the torn labrum. Now, we actually there's people that have metered this. Like, I think we're the second in the NFL of people that want to turn down the sound of the TV. People from Wheatland, Missouri have figured this out, dude. There's a way to do this. Even if you DVR the game and you can sync up the sound to the DV. I mean, there's ways of doing it kind of Rube Goldberg style. There's even apps to figure out how to do it. You can do it. A lot of you out here are doing it. Like, yeah, we do it every week. But we welcome that because, and this is, the guys that do the game on the network will come in, they might study it, but they haven't had us all the time, and they'll come in on Friday and have a meeting with the coach. It's our lives. And so we're going to bring you something that you're not going to get from those guys. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just that's the way it is. And his insight and his passion. I mean, I got a shoulder injury from it. So don't just think I'm the only one.
They shouldn't have jumped up and down on our logo. The Raiders shouldn't have did that, Mitch. So I'm not responsible for any injuries that happened after that in the booth.
See what? It's Agent Orange, man. It's like, but there's ways of doing it. And will the NFL allow that? Well, they kind of like, they have their partners with the television crew, but there's a way of pulling this off, even starting in the 2022 season. So check around with your buddies and gals. Gals figure this out quicker than the dudes. They're like, I got it. I mean, our gals are awesome in the Chiefs Kingdom. There's something called watch, attend, and listen. It's a metric. Who watches, who attends, who listens. And our female engagement, I think, is either 1 or 2 in the league. I'm serious. And if you think I'm wrong, just spend 30 seconds with the queens of the Queen City, and dude, your life will change. Because they're right over there, like, what up? So.
Hey, gang, I think you'll agree with all of us, with Mike the intern and yours truly. This is really great having these guys down here. How about giving them a big
yes,
round of
thank you.
applause?
And while you're doing that, give yourselves a big hand for coming out tonight. You guys, every year we see the same guys and gals coming through, and it makes me feel so good that we're onto something here that you guys love, that you guys cherish just as much as myself as a huge lifetime fan, as much as you guys as part of the kingdom. This is a big deal for these guys. Danan, thank you so much for coming down here for the first year. Appreciate it, Mitch. We love you. Thank you for coming by. Also, one more time, just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Godfather's Pizza, RX Roofing, Coyotes, MMA, Mocrete, Citizens Bank of Rogersville, and of course 104.7 The Cave, your home for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Godfather's Pizza, the best dessert pizza around.
He knows. This pretty much concludes it. You guys feel free to hang out.
I gotta take a selfie.
Have a drink. Hold on, we gotta get Ned in here. Guys, thank you so much for coming out, and go Chiefs!
Hey, folks, real quickly, for those of you, I know we do this every year. Mitch loves to lead you in his signature call.
This is the most important part of the evening.
Let's go. This isn't for the faint of heart, so take a couple deep breaths. The governor's the best at this. If you can't out-yell the governor, then just go home. Ready? You ready to do it? Touchdowns are not normal things in the Chiefs' kingdom. They're to be celebrated, toasted with the sweet nectar of the end zone. You ready for this? Nobody does it better than the Ozarks. You ready on 3? Get ready. We've just scored a touchdown. 1, 2, 3. Touchdown! Kansas City!
Thank you guys for coming out, and we will see every single one of you next year. Thank you, Blue Room Comedy Club. You guys have a great night, and go Chiefs.